Everybody, welcome back. We're going to do a comparison video for you guys today. A lot of you guys have been asking about, is it better to have chickens versus rabbits? And for those of you guys that know me know that realistically, it's whatever fits your ideologies, whatever fits your situation for where you're at. Now, we can talk about it from a comparison standpoint, from an economic standpoint, from a survivability standpoint, from a preparedness standpoint, from an infrastructure standpoint. So we're going to talk about all those things. So maybe that'll help you in your decision making. Both are great livestock to have, but there are going to be pros and cons to both. For me, there's a clear winner, but I'm going to let you guys decide. I'm just going to give you guys the facts. So again, this is going to be an all-encompassing comparison. We're going to start from babies, and we're going to go all the way up to full adults, breeding adults. So this is going to be good. We have all stages here at the homestead as of right now until the buyers come and pick them up. So we have a fully staffed homestead for you guys to take a look at. So let's get started. So for chickens, let's start at the very beginning here. So here on the Myrtle Woods homestead, we have a breeding flock of chickens that will regularly breed with each other, and they produce fertilized eggs. And we then take those eggs and we put them in an incubator and hatch them out. That's how most of the chickens are raised here at the Myrtle Woods homestead. So we'll give you a quick look here so you can see real quick. But yes, we have a full house of eggs that we incubate around here 24/7. Now this is great because this will increase the survivability of the eggs. We can produce a lot of them. We have 2 incubators going at all times, usually here at the Myrtle Woods homestead, and this is a very cost-effective way to do it. Now, the downside is it does require electricity. It doesn't require a whole lot, and I've done a whole video on that, and I'll link that in the description box below if you can take a look at. But it doesn't take a ton of electricity, but it does take electricity. As far as cost, it cost me around $3.25 to run this incubator for a month. So for a month of energy, it's about $3.25, which isn't a whole lot. But in case of a grid down situation, if you do not have power to power this thing 24/7 for chickens 23 days to 25 days, ducks 25 to really a month, then you're not going to be able to reproduce chickens or ducks on your homestead. So that is the one downside. You can produce a lot of them, but it does require some power and infrastructure considerations. Now for rabbits, they're started here, they're incubated here. So we take a female and we expose her to a male. This is DJ, our prize buck here. And as you can see, there's a carabiner, and that tells me I put carabiners on the cage to let me know that she has been bred with, she's been exposed. And so the incubation process goes on in her little belly over there in her womb for 28 days. And then she will give birth to a litter of rabbits, which is good because it requires no electricity, requires no power, no infrastructure. All I have to do is feed, water, keep her safe. Now with that being said, there are always exceptions to the rule. As you can see in here, we have a mom with her baby chicks. She hatched these out the natural way. As you can see, we have 6 chicks. We had 7, but one of them didn't make it. But yes, she was able to hatch them out all by herself just by being broody and laying on the eggs. So it is possible to produce chicks without electricity. Just, minor infrastructure of having a brooder like you see here, food and water. Now with that being said, there is a gamble because not every hen is going to lay on the eggs and go broody until they hatch. And then when they do hatch, you can't expect to have a full incubator, right? My incubators hold 48 eggs a piece depending on the type of egg. Quail eggs, they can hold more, geese eggs, they can hold less. But overall, 48 eggs can be incubated at a time, while a hen may only be able to sit on 12 or maybe a dozen, depending on how big she is. So there are some things to think about. While they can do it, there's no consistency in which they may sit or go broody, number one. And number 2, even if they are the best broody hens in the world, they can only sit on a clutch of eggs depending on how big their body size is. So the amount that you'll be able to hatch out is going to be limited. Now here's a baby chick that's a week old. As you can see, fits in the palm of my hand pretty well. So size-wise, this is what they look like at about a week. And you'll also notice that they're pretty active. They're out walking around, scratching, following mom everywhere. So right out of the get-go, they're pretty active and running around. Obviously, if they have mom, there's no need for electricity, there's no need for a heating lamp because mom will take care of that. But if there is no mom, then you're gonna need to set a heat lamp up to keep them warm. That's gonna be an additional electric cost. I mean, you're probably gonna need, at a minimum, small end, if you're in a temperate environment, 150 watt bulb. Most likely you're gonna need either a 200 or 250 watt bulb. So, you know, over time, that adds up. So it looks like I caught this one just at the right time. Usually they're sleeping, but there's a baby rabbit. And in this cage right here, these babies are about a week old. So I'll grab one and show you. So this baby's a week old, and you can see he's barely opening his eyes. Size-wise, though, they're pretty similar. These baby rabbits are a little bit bigger. You can definitely feel there's more weight to them at a week old. But for all intents and purposes, at about a week, they're very similar in size. The main difference is, as far as preparedness, sustainability, and cost aspect of them, they are a lot more dependent on mom. They don't move around a whole lot. But as far as infrastructure goes, there's no heat lamp that's required, no electricity that's required. So as long as you keep mom healthy and happy, the babies will be just fine. So here we have rabbits that are exactly 1 month old. Let me move so we can get some different lighting, but all these rabbits in here, they have just turned a month old, and they're all running up to the cage because they are hungry and it's feeding time. So this is where we're going to start seeing the major differences in not only size, but infrastructure needs, cost, and sustainability. So like I said, these rabbits are a month old. They've been weaned off mom. It takes about a month. And so all I do is I put them in this grow out cage and I give them fresh pasture, as much as they can eat, every single day with water. And that's all you need. Happy as can be. Requires no inputs from the outside world. I don't have to buy feed. I don't have to do any of that. I can sustainably grow rabbits just using the pasture I have here. I get my Ryobi electric lawnmower and I cut everything up and I put it in here. So I don't even have to worry about fuel problems or have any fuel concerns because I don't use it. I use the power of the sun. So very sustainable. Now look at these chicks right here. These are 2 months old, and there's a mama hen right there who's about a year old. So these are 2 month old chicks. They are ready to be on their own. So as you can see, they're out here pasture raising, but they're not very big. These 2 month old chickens are probably about the same size as our 1 month old rabbits here. So we definitely see a size difference as the chickens get a little bit bigger, but they're out here, they're pasture raising, they're doing what they need to do. Now with the chicks, they do a pretty good job. I mean, they pasture raise throughout the day. At 2 months old, they don't need a heat lamp anymore, so they can freely run around with all the other flock and they can pasture raise. And that's really good because they do a really good job of keeping the insects down. They eat pasture as well. But every other day I go inside the barn, their little chicken barn there, and I do fill their 2 large feed containers full of feed. And as you can see, everyone knows I have the feed. They're all like, "We know you have it, old man." So overall, my inputs for how many ducks and chickens I have is relatively small compared to most other people that farm chickens, but that's because I do so as you know, sustainably as possible. But even doing that, I still have to depend on feed infrastructure outside of my homestead. So I still have to go out and buy feed if I want to keep up with the level and the demand of the chicks that I do keep here on the homestead. So while I do love these guys, I do realize that there is a feed need that's required here on the homestead. So there is a feed cost and there's a feed bill associated with raising these guys that I don't necessarily have with the rabbits. So these are obviously my adult chickens, except for the few poults that I've already pointed out to you. And those are the ducks there. And around 16 weeks, I can get a 4 to 5 pound bird. So that's not too bad. They're not gonna be the large meat birds, although I have been incorporating those into my breeding program. But at around 16 weeks, I feel pretty confident that I get around, you know, a 5 pound bird. As you can see, my large rooster right there, he is a non-GMO Cornish cross. So if I were to harvest him right now, that's about 6-7 pounds worth of meat right there, just for size comparison to the khaki Campbell Pekin that just walked by. That's around a 4 to 5 pound bird. But it's also important to note that he's fully grown and he's a little over a year now. So now let's take a look at the rabbits. So this is Blizzard. Blizzard is about 6, almost 7 pounds of rabbit. He's about 12, 13 weeks old. We have him here in this cage because we're going to be incorporating him into our breeding program. So by the time he's 6-7 months old, before I even think about breeding him, he'll be topping the scales at around 9-10 pounds. So this is one of my breeding females. She's a little skittish right now. She is 12 pounds of rabbit. She's fully grown. She's about 2 years old. And these mamas are big. These are 12-pound rabbits right here. And just for perspective, these cages are 3 foot by 3 foot. So this is DJ. He's my prize buck. He's getting old. He's getting up there in age, but in his heyday, he was just under 15 pounds of rabbit. Right now, he's sitting at around 12, 13 pounds of rabbit. And yes, if I'm in a hurry, I do have rabbit feed. This isn't really rabbit feed. All it is sun-cured, sun-dried alfalfa pellets. So it's 100% sun-dried alfalfa. So it's grass that's been put and compressed into pelleted form. This stuff is grown locally here in the area, so it's readily available. And like I said, the only time I really need to feed this is if I'm in a hurry and I don't feel like cutting grass. So let's look at this from a cost perspective. The rabbit feed for a large bag, consistently $11, $12 a large bag. And that stays pretty consistent because it's just grass. Now with the bird feed, a little more expensive, anywhere for large bag, and what I consider a large bag, 50-pound bag, 40, 50-pound bags, what I consider a large bag, anywhere between $17 upwards of $20, $22, depending on what's going on with the world, depending on what's going on with the grain and feed cost overall. You can see lots of fluctuation with the bird feed. Now, if we're talking about just feed that we buy, purchase, pelleted form, what have you, it's cheaper to feed the rabbits. With that being said, it's a lot cheaper to feed the rabbits, especially if I'm using my own pasture, which I get my fields hayed, and I have bales of hay from my field that I feed my livestock as well. So if I have the time to do it, and obviously in some kind of crazy economic collapse, raw grid down situation, I'm gonna have a whole lot of time to do homesteading stuff, because that's literally going to be the only thing I'm going to be able to do. So I can feed the rabbits absolutely for free here on the homestead. And most people that have a yard can feed their rabbits for free as well, as long as they don't mind putting in a little bit of extra work. So there you have for feed. Now let's take a look at the infrastructure costs real quick, because I think that's an important thing to look at. The rabbits are going to come with an initial cost of the rabbits you're buying. If you're wanting to get good quality breed of rabbit that comes from good lines, you're probably going to pay a little more than you will for chicken. However, with that being said, if you guys have watched some of my other videos that I've done on this, all livestock prices are going up right now. So I mean, the prices may vary depending on your area, but to get the initial coop set up, to get the cages set up, that's going to be an infrastructure cost, and depending on how you do it, they might be similar. Now, to run the infrastructure, rabbits are completely off-grid. No electricity needed. Chickens, not so much. If you're going to be incubating your own eggs, which if you want consistent chickens or any kind of poultry, it's kind of what you're going to have to do. That's going to come with, depending on what electricity is in your area. In our area, it costs me, and electricity is a little more expensive here, $3.25 to run that incubator for a month. Okay, and so obviously the electric costs on the incubation are important, but most importantly, just having access to electricity to run the incubator. That's really half the battle right there. And then once the chicks hatch out, you need to put them underneath a brooding lamp to keep them warm. And if you are raising a lot of chickens, a 150 watt bulb may not cut it. You may need a 250 watt bulb. So being able to have constant access to electricity is going to be really important for growing out and having your own chickens. For rabbits, they'll be in their own nesting box, as you see there, and they'll be able to keep themselves warm by just being next to each other, right? Especially if you have, a large litter of rabbits that, large litter I would consider to be, 10, 11 and up. They're going to be able to keep each other warm even if it's snowing outside in the dead of winter. So, keep those infrastructure costs in mind when you're looking at this, when you're deciding which one to go with. Now, if you're looking at size, the rabbits do tend to grow up faster than the chickens. Now, with that being said, that's going to be very breed dependent. Like I said, I'm incorporating some of those Cornish cross genes into my flock. So I'm going to expect to get a bigger bird quicker. But overall, it's really hard to beat, 5 pounds of meat in 8 weeks. I mean, that's a really hard template to beat. So now that we've introduced you to those factors and what we're looking at as far as sustainability, infrastructure costs, what they look like when they're growing out, etc., let's look at the meat from a nutritional density standpoint. So as we can see, rabbit meat is more nutrient dense, both from a macro, micro level. It has less fat than chicken does, but overall it is more nutrient dense. So looking at this from every metric that I can see, whether we're talking about overhead costs and when we're talking about feed conversion ratios, whether we're talking about overall operating costs, when we're talking about sustainability, when we're talking about overall nutrient density, it's very obvious to see that, there are a lot more pros to rabbits than there are to chickens. But with that being said, you really have to decide what it is that you want to do, because I understand I can point all the facts, all the science to you guys, and I can show you daily on my homestead. But, if you are unwilling to eat the bunny because it's a bunny, well then raising rabbits doesn't do you a whole lot of good at all. That's really the reason why I don't feel comfortable telling people what they should be raising. People ask me all the time, and like I said, I can give you the science, I can give you the facts, and I can clearly articulate that rabbit, in my opinion, looking at the science and facts, are going to have more pros than chickens. In fact, I can do that with any other animal that I raise. Rabbits versus sheep versus cows versus pigs versus ducks versus quail versus turkey. I mean, you name it, right? And the reason why I can do that is because the science and the facts are pretty clear. But I understand at the end of the day, you have to be willing to harvest and eat that animal yourself. And if you can't do it or are unwilling to do it just because of the sheer fact that it's a bunny, having a whole farm of them isn't going to do you a whole lot of good now, is it? For some people, the best beginner animal livestock is a cow, because they have the land, it's fenced off, and they can put cattle on pasture and they can pretty much just, walk away, and the cow's going to be fine as long as the infrastructure is set up. I mean, Oakley is great. As far as, the labor that goes into her every single day, it's virtually none. I make sure she has a trough of water filled up, and outside of that, the pasture land behind me is her playground, and she can do as she pleases. Versus, rabbits that if they're in the cages that you saw earlier, the vertical cages, it requires, upkeep, it requires maintenance, it requires cleaning cages and stuff like that out. That takes more time than filling up a trough every once in a while, so everybody's needs are going to be different. So I realize everybody's needs is different depending on where you are, and I get and respect that. I hope this video was helpful for you guys that did have questions, to kind of let you see the process from start to finish, and see what the pros and cons were for both the rabbit and the chicken. So I hope this was helpful for you guys to look at, and especially for those of you that are on the fence that aren't really sure what to do. Really go with your gut, go with your heart. If you feel like that, you really like all the good attributes of rabbits and you feel like you can harvest them and you're not going to have a problem with that, man, it's an excellent meat source. It really is. If you guys do feel like you're going to have your apprehensions, there's nothing wrong with going with chickens. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with going with any of the livestock animals. So just keep that in mind. You really have to do what's comfortable for you. And at the end of the day, the worst thing you can do is get this infrastructure set up and get an animal only to not know what to do with it because of your apprehensions and, inability to harvest. So keep that in mind. I hope this video was helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. I look forward to interacting with you guys in the comment section below. And as always, guys, long live the Republic. And as always, long live the Republic.